snuff. I believe we are live. Okay, tonight I have Cody King and Chris, anecdote of a houndsman. And I got to say, to start out with, this episode is the first that is being sponsored by W Hunting Supply. So
Pilot.
it's our pilot episode, something like
Pilot.
that. I don't know. So I asked Cody. Cody's a good friend of mine. We have some real deep conversations from time to time on the phone about hounds and dry ground lion hunting and running bobcats in South Texas and even venturing off. What's that?
$2 million kennels.
Yeah, and
yeah. I wouldn't quite go that far.
And venturing off into Mexico and doing a few hunts over there. So, anyway,
We get around a little bit.
your volume might still be a little low, Cody.
Little bit.
I don't.
Does mine sound all right?
Yours sounds good, Chris.
Yours sounds good. I guess the only mic that I have is in this webcam deal. Maybe I'll just talk real loud.
There you go.
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
all you gotta do.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to
Like
get.
a real Texan. Like a real Texan.
Yeah,
Big and loud.
So
you're gonna be a Texan. You might as well be a loud one.
I've known a few of those. So, what have you been doing lately, Cody?
Man, not a whole lot. We've been pretty busy at work trying to get some stuff done and been hunting a little bit. The deer hunters have kind of taken over the woods. The deer are rutting and
Oh,
Yeah.
so a lot
That's everywhere.
of the hunting country's been slow, but I've been hunting a little bit. The bobcats are rutting right now, full blown, the best I've ever seen them rut in my 19 years of running them with hounds. It's absolutely crazy. There's bobcats everywhere.
and when they rut like that, does it mess up your hunting?
Yeah, it can. I mean, it makes it good because you can start cats, but if conditions were real good, it would be awesome. But unfortunately, we're pretty dry. We're starting to get dry again down here. And so, I mean, take for example, I went the other night and I dumped the dogs in 10 minutes, started a cat. In 30 minutes, I had 3 different races going. They were just split up everywhere, cats all together. Jump 3 of them and can't catch one. That's pretty sorry. But I finally managed to get one caught the next day. But no, it can be tough. It can be tough when they're rutting, good and bad.
Do they act stupid like deer?
Yeah, they kind of do. As far as not caring about humans, they'll come out right around you if you're sitting in deer blinds and stuff. But one thing that they really do is they just walk down the road for miles and miles and miles and miles, and it's tough to get them out. We just need a little rain is all we need. We just need a little rain.
So when you have split races like that and you have dogs split, it's just makes it that much harder to get that cat caught.
Yeah, and then these dogs make a lose on this cat and they just instantly try to hightail it over to the other dogs that are barking on the other cat. And, and then you've got your hard-headed ones that won't leave that cat. And then, so it when they get in a bad situation, you got a whole bunch of dogs in the middle just kind of running to this dog, and before they can get over there to that one, this one barks and they're running back to that one, and it's very frustrating is what it is. It make a man pull all his hair out real quick.
So I mean, typically, how many hounds do you put on the ground?
Just one more?
That's all it takes.
If I just had one more dog, I'd have caught that. If I had just had one more. So the new kennels are set up.
Oh, we got to get to the new kennels. Hold
That's
on,
it.
hold
Yeah,
on.
we're gonna get
That's
to
we're gonna make a special segment
that.
just for the kennels. Let's talk about
That's good,
dogs for a
King.
little while, and then we'll go to the
Yeah.
kennels.
The kennels are set up for 20 kennels, for 20 dogs. But right now, I have 14 dogs that I'm hunting. Two of them are out because of Chagas.
Chagas.
Probably never.
What is
Yeah,
Chagas?
man. Oh, don't get me started. Uh,
I'll lean back.
Put it in a
Chagas is a
nutshell.
disease.
Put it-
The sad part about this, Chris, is you'll look back at this particular interview one day and go, I can't believe I didn't know what Chagas was, because it's coming. And let this be a warning to every houndsman across the country. It's coming. If you don't have snow on the ground for the majority of the winter, it's
Mm.
coming. And it's a disease. People get it as well. We got a little bit different bug than down in Central America and stuff that are giving it to people, but it's called a kissing bug or a Chagas bug, uh, and it it's bad. I had a case of it come up. I've had a dog or two die from it over the years. I had a case of it come up this year. Took my dogs to the vet, and 14 out of 15 dogs tested positive for Chagas.
Jeez.
Is it hard to cure?
You can't cure it.
You just control it.
Now, you and that's debatable. Different vets have different uh, treatments that they're using. About 30% of the dogs that get Chagas will be instant death syndrome. I mean, your healthy dog will just be running down the road, and then you'll look at him, and all of a sudden he's kind of leaning sideways as he's running, and then just boom, dead. Um,
Hmm.
about 30% of the dogs that get it will get sick. They won't die, but they'll be in a condition where they can't hunt really anymore. And then about 30% of the dogs will get it and never show any symptoms of being sick at all.
Chagas, an infectious disease caused by a parasite found in the feces of the triatomine bug.
Hmm.
Chagas
Yeah.
disease is common in places where the triatomine bug, probably slaughtering that, transmits the parasite Trypanosoma cruzi. These places
They're
include
in
South America,
Arizona.
Central America, Mexico.
Yeah.
Is it a
Hmm.
They're
dry
in
ground? So,
Arizona.
like, they don't live in the cold? Like, it's harder to get in the cold? Is
That's
that what you're kind of saying?
that's what they claim has kept them south, but they seem to start ignoring it. If you look on a map of where Chagas bugs have been observed, it's the lower 2/3 of the United States.
Hey,
It's a very big
learn
deal,
something new every day.
and in 5 years, it'll be in all of y'all's vocabulary. It's coming, and
Is there a
it's just
vac?
very
Is there a
no,
vaccine?
no.
So, does it come and go? I mean, like, so when they get it, like, one day they're good, the next day they're not, one day they're good, next day they're not, kind of deal? Like a fever that
No,
swells up. And
no, they if you cut a dog's heart out that has Chagas after he dies, he'll have white stripes through his heart, or his heart may even be a kind of white and mushy. But
yeah,
it causes scar tissue in the heart, which has to do with getting blood out of capillaries, and then it causes them to build up fluid, um, and then basically they die from congenitive heart failure or whatever they call it. But it they'll build up a lot of fluid around their heart, and uh, yeah, I've been talking to a gentleman named Bob Glass. He's one of the nation's expert in dogs and Chagas, and He's doing a lot of studies. He's the one that came down and bled all of my dogs. He's got a preventative medicine called Plithium, something that he concocts. I can't tell you much about it. Uh, I did get my dogs on it. You give them 3 doses, and then when you wake up, you got to bite and you rub it. The disease, the transmission of the disease is from the fecal matter of the bug.
Yeah.
And water buckets is what did me in. Is these bugs being around my water buckets, and the fecal matter ending up in the water buckets. But they do bite the dog. I mean, there'll be one on a dog and you hit it and it'll blow up like a full mosquito. They're full of
What
blood.
do they look like? A mosquito?
No, they're a big beetle.
Oh,
They're
a big beetle.
Yeah, it's like a cotton bug. What we used to call them here. Let me see.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull one up. I'd like for everybody to see one just so they can.
Here, I can search it and share the screen.
Yeah.
Just look up Chagas bug. It's a big old black beetle with yellow stripes on its ass.
Triatomine bug. Tritomine. The official name, I believe. There it is.
You dirty bugger. There you go. That's all we need. Wow.
That's it.
For those that are watching the podcast, for those that are listening to the podcast and are not watching the video, it's a big old beetle is what it is.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a stink bug.
Yeah.
But black, yellow stripes on its rear end. They when I first started hunting, I remember one guy's dog died from it. And nobody cared. We never heard about it.
Just wasn't.
There's not a South Texas cat hunter that has not lost multiple dogs to Chagas in the last 2 years.
Does it have to be in a more humid environment, or
is it a dry?
They don't.
I know they're around Laredo and stuff where it's pretty dry. So
sounds like a dry bug that looks for water. That's where you're going to catch them.
Just seems strange.
Very, very important to not have lights on in your kennels at nighttime because they're drawn to the lights. And they're drawn to the lights. And out of my 15 dogs, one of them, we tested them for everything. One of them tested for anaplasmosis, tick disease. Tested positive, but other than that, just Chagas. But they've all got it, and it's gonna, and so that is the driving factor behind the new kennels. Is I'm building some kennels that are gonna be completely enclosed, screened in. I mean, they're specifically designed.
Yeah, there's your segue.
Yes.
Yeah,
there's your segue, Brett.
Let's talk about kennels.
Yeah, let's just talk
and tell us about yours, Cody. Let us in on that.
Well, to start things off, I would like to say when I was in the design phase, I went a little overboard, and I went a little crazy. But the dogs testing positive for Chagas, and just kind of my segue into the kennels is I've built 4 or 5 of these kennels for a customer. 200 dog kennels, much bigger than mine.
Hold on, bird dogs, because most houndsmen cannot afford a kennel like that. We can barely afford a chain.
Well, I was fortunate enough that I got to build 4 of these for somebody else, and there may have been some shit left over.
They're a little leftover material.
that damn estimator over there at All Valley, man, he might have over-ordered. But
well, tell us, how big are they? What's the key factors to them? I mean, I've seen some pictures on Facebook, so I'm real interested.
So, I mean, the biggest part of them is that they do have a living room, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. So
That
there's
that's
living
that's
quarters in
that's
there.
That
my place to go stay.
that
Yeah,
that's
for Brett.
Cody's doghouse when he gets in
Yeah,
trouble.
my wife told me. She said, "I'm gonna send you to the doghouse," and I said, "Well, I'll show her. God dang it, let me tell you." And but so it does have some living quarters, and then it's got an air conditioned vet room with an air conditioned kennel, and
For 6 dogs.
yeah, and then it's got the outside bay. It's all it's completely enclosed. So there's six uh, garage door openings basically that are going to be screened in, and then it's going to have some very big fans to move a lot of the air. Vent fans, and but basically just trying to keep Chagas out. It's 20 kennels, 10 on each side. It's got a clean out with a log ride, and each individual kennel's 5 foot by 8 foot. I ordered the kennels from TK Products. That's where the actual kennels came from. I was gonna build them, and man, we used them on some of them other projects, and they're they're really nice, and you could change them out. They're all hot dip galvanized, and I liked them, so I went ahead and put those in there. That was probably the most expensive cost. They cost a little over $1,000 a kennel,
Yeah.
uh, but they're nice.
Cool.
They'll last a while. They'll
That's
definitely last a while.
yeah, yeah. That's the one thing I just couldn't do myself. I got my guys over there building most of that stuff, and but no, it's gonna be nice. As soon as it's done, I'll take a good video and send it to you.
Yeah,
I know.
please
I
do.
tell you, I've had so many people reach out to me about those kennels, you know, and hey, where'd you get this idea? Or hey, can you send me a picture of this?
Hmm.
And and so I think it's kind of good to put them out there and show them. I'm not trying to show off my kennels, although I am very proud of them.
Sure.
But I have a lot of people reach out to me asking questions about them and
Oh,
little
I
things
bet.
that I did. That way, people can steal those ideas. And I've had people reach out to me and give me ideas.
Hmm.
Uh, it's like you say, every hound hunter maybe can't afford a big nice set of kennels, but every hound hunter has some kind of kennels set up, and one little thing that makes their life easier that they've figured out. And so when you can see all of those different ideas and try to put them together, it's good for everybody.
Yeah, when I was at my last place, I mean, I had everything on concrete and a septic drain and all that stuff. It wasn't that extensive, but it was. I sure liked it. It was nice, and of course I bought all my kennels for that too. But yeah. So with that being said, and the Chagas, uh, while you're out hunting, you don't really have to worry about your dogs being exposed to that chaga beetle.
Yeah, it's not. When we were in when I,
Hold on. There you are.
they have a fly, and I'm gonna mess the name of it up, but it's Tahiti fly or something like that. Tahiti fly. I don't know. Gavin could, but we're driving around roading the dog hunting, and then you just see Gavin run across the open field to go swat this fly off the dog's back because it carries some disease and it bites the dogs and kills them.
Jeez.
And it's we're not that bad. We're not that bad. We don't have to really worry about them while we're hunting. It's more along the lines of where the dogs are living.
Cool. All right.
So
Let me.
That's a. I heard another podcast and they was talking about social media and stuff, and that's probably one good way right there that social media helps out
Hmm.
instead of destroys. is you do get all those. You post. I seen your post about your kennels. You know, people reaching out or asking questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
That's a
for sure.
there's been a lot of criticism over social media, but I mean, and I criticize a lot of things that are done on it, but I would have never known you, Chris. I never would have known Cody or George Lambert
yeah.
or any of my friends like that, and so there's a lot of good that comes out of it too. I think it's like anything else; it's a tool, and
Yeah.
it all depends on
Oh,
how you
just
use it.
just like a
I didn't.
prescription drug, it can save you or it can kill you.
I didn't get on Facebook till probably almost 2 years ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And before that, I was never on social media, and I didn't. I hadn't the slightest clue how many hound hunters there were in this country, and of all different sizes, coon hunters and deer hunters and coyote hunters and fox hunters and lion hunters and cat hunters, and I had no idea, no
Yeah,
idea. And because of it, I've met a lot of cool people and I've learned a lot. Alan Listall from Minnesota. Uh, he came hunting with me last year, and he came back this year with some of his buddies, and I'd have never met those guys if it wasn't for social media. So there's some good to it. There's no doubt
yeah,
about
there
that.
is. And yeah, and of course, I was on prior to Facebook and all that. I was on Big Game Houndsman, Coyote Gods, and all these
I,
different the old shade tree before Big Game
hmm
Houndsman. Uh, uh, who was it? Was it? It was Bruce Kennedy, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
started the
that,
old
that
shade
own
tree.
yes.
Yeah. So
I
that
think you're
was
right.
all. That was a long time before Facebook.
And
And I go ahead.
we were talking about the pioneers of that, and Big Game's Houndsman. The Shade Tree is really old school. Big
That's
Game
old.
Houndsman. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that. To me, that was almost the pioneer of social media for houndsmen,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not a podcast. Not. I used to go on there and just read stories, look at
Hmm.
pictures, and you had the same drama. I've seen I've seen a lot of good
there
fights,
was
but
there were some good
you know
fights
that
on there.
that
Yeah.
oh man, but that brings me to deer hunting in Texas. You mentioned deer hunters. How does your guys' relationship with the deer hunters? Because back east, I don't think Arizona. I don't know about New Mexico. I don't think we're like hardcore like as they are back east. Now back east, I've seen some good posts about deer hunters and hating hound hunters and vice versa. How is it in Texas? Do you guys get along
In
with the
tech,
deer hunters?
Well, they got private land.
yeah, for the
Yeah.
most part, we're all private land, so we're not
Mhm.
competing. And now at the same time, you know, it, I my hunting places went from 20 to 3, because there's deer hunters using the private land, and the deer hunters come first. But uh, the private land, and then uh, deer hunting has gotten so big, and deer hunting has gotten so expensive, and the raising of the pinned deer. Um, when the landowner pulls up and there's a 170-inch buck laying dead because a lion killed it and covered it up, he wants it gone. Hey,
All this,
he gonna
yeah.
call somebody with dogs, and we're gonna catch him. You know, and
Yeah.
so it's a love hate relationship. Um, whenever you're hunting private land, a lot of times there's just a barbed wire fence between you and somebody who does not want
Mhm.
your dogs on their property. And
Dogs don't know
and
private property lines. Deer don't
no,
know
they
private
don't.
property lines.
No. And and I've had some disagreements with some hound hunters over that very issue. I'm a firm believer in the right to get our dogs and retrieve
Right
our
to retrieve. Yeah.
dogs, and all that stuff. But I'm also a big believer in private rights. I mean, uh, none of us would like it if the government said that it was legal for a bunch of bunny huggers to run around your place naked, smoking dope, singing "Kumbaya." You know, and you know, so having your rights to your private land is, I respect that. You don't want dogs on your place. I can
Yeah.
respect that. Now, accidents happen, but I think it's important for us as hound hunters to not use that as an excuse to just say, "Oh, screw it, I'm going to go turn loose in that 60-acre cornfield and run a bear or a hog that I know I'm going to catch in that brush next door, where that guy doesn't want me in there, but I have the legal right to go get my dogs. So I'm going to
Yeah.
go."
Playing
I
the game.
think we got to, you know, police ourselves a little bit, and try to make peace with everybody. And just because you may have the right to go retrieve your dog, don't abuse it and use that as an excuse to be hunting somewhere you really really shouldn't be hunting anywhere. But then at the same time, a lot of these places, it was a big deal on that guy from Vermont, you know,
Mm.
the bear hunter. Um, a lot of these places, hell, your people are running out of places to hunt. There's little subdivisions popping up all over the place, and people losing hunting country in New Mexico and Arizona and Texas. We don't realize how lucky we are versus, an old timer trying to bear hunt in Vermont. There's probably counties in Texas bigger than Vermont. It,
Mm.
uh, uh, it's just tough. Times are changing, but we are blessed to have modern technology, and
Mm.
GPS collars and all that stuff sure help us, kind of
Well,
navigate through that.
that's where your excuse goes out the window because you can see where those dogs are. You know which way those
Yeah.
dogs are heading, and if you know your dogs, you know exactly what's going to happen. And it's
But
if you got a good set of dogs,
do you want to shock them off a heads up bear race when they're heading into private country?
well, it's better than getting your dog shot or having to deal
Well,
with it.
yeah, I
I've
know.
shocked dogs off of bears and lions and whatever else to get them before they hit the reservation. It's no different in reservation. So I I don't know. If you have a good dog, chalking them off a bear, a seasoned dog, I don't think it's going to ruin them. You put them
Days
on,
had
you take them down a mile up the road on another bear, and I bet you he'll run it just the same.
Days had
Or a coyote.
constructs
Or a
a
coyote.
bunch of country that there's some pretty prevalent highways next to. And unfortunately for Dace, he has to stop his dogs a lot because they'll get run over if he doesn't stop them. And I think Dace is pretty much proven that stopping your dogs off a cat race ain't ain't gonna hurt them. You know, if you do it
Not unless it's
in
a
the right
4 month
way.
old or 6 month old
Correct.
pup or something. If you got a real young dog that hasn't seen a lot of game, but most of the time you shock them big dogs and those big dogs turn, come back, a lot of your pups will follow them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dace doesn't even shock them. He just tones them.
Tones them.
But his
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
dogs have
Yep.
they've gotten used
Yep.
to it over time, and they know what it means.
Yeah. I mean, I always train all my dogs to recall on tone. I mean, that's pretty important to me. Now, sometimes it takes a little while, but anyway,
But
well,
the deer hunters that think, I mean, anybody that can hunt with me, there'll be deer eating at a feeder, and my dogs will rode past them. And in places that I hunt very regular, those deer don't pay no attention to them dogs. If them dogs aren't actively chasing those deer, they're not running your deer off of your place.
no.
Uh, these guys think that because a coon hunter went through there and treated a coon last night, he's not going to see no deer for 3 weeks, and that's just a uneducated person not knowing. He just never been around hunting with dogs much.
Hey, I got a good story. I think I already told Cody. I don't think I told Chris. Speaking of deer and dogs, and I I packed my nephew into a real remote place, way out in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness. I packed a camp up there for him. He didn't go in with me. He went up a day later, but I packed the tent in, the wood burn stove, and all that stuff for him. And I went in on this trail about 9 o'clock in the morning. There was a little skiff of snow on the north side of the mountain. Went in, set up the camp and everything. Was coming back out with my dogs. I had three young dogs with me and two older dogs. And coming out, this country has a lot of coos deer, little white-tailed deer up in that area, and that's what my nephew's after with his stick, with his bow. And sure enough, we jumped a little deer up, and he ran across the canyon and then crossed over way out in front of us. So we go on down. Pretty soon my dogs started opening on the trail. I thought, you dirty boogers. They're wanting to trail that deer. And I didn't say nothing to them. I had some young dogs, and I thought, well, they're kind of going the way I want to go. So we just kept on going. And I'll be dang if I didn't look down, and there was the biggest tom lion track that I think I've ever seen. He'd come in. The dogs were trailing him backwards, but he came in over our tracks. He came in following me, in other words. And I was talking to a pretty famous dry ground lion hunter this morning. He said, "Oh yeah." He said they're so curious. And then I had a game camera up on a saddle when I lived up there on the mountain, and I had a picture of the rancher below me. He had a pack of hounds, a good pack of hounds, and him going through that saddle. And 2 hours later, a tom lion following right behind him, following him back into there. And now, Cody, tell me your story.
Yeah, I think that's pretty funny because when I was young and thought I knew a lot more than I do, uh, you know, I don't know why, but I had it in my mind that if if you would eh, if you would go hunt a place, if you didn't catch the lion would smell the dogs and then leave, you know,
Mm-hmm.
leave out of the area. And even with lion kills, I used to think that you need to tippy toe in and don't touch nothing, or you're gonna spook that lion away, and that's not the case. I think they have no fear. But 2 years ago, I was hunting on a ranch, and I started a lion. I mean, I hunted. They had seen a lion in the area, and I went down there and went hunting. And I hunted this big old long creek. I hunted that area, and then when you got to a certain part of the creek, there was a lake off to the right, and I turned from that creek and went towards that lake, and I didn't start nothing. But then I came back later the next morning. That was one morning. The next morning, and I trailed the lion, and that lion had walked right where we rode it. That lion turned and went to that lake, then came back to the creek, and it may have been just a big coincidence, but it almost seemed like that lion was following the dogs, or I just wanted to know who was in his territory. It was something new. I couldn't tell you why, but I think there was just too much that he didn't he didn't I mean, he had to have been following where we had hunted the morning before. We caught the lion, and but
Is this one?
I think they are curious animals.
Is this one of these lions?
No, that's the last lion I caught. That one right there. It
What's the dogs you're holding, or that's showing there? Is one of them Ricochet?
So that's Slade. That's Slade on the left, uh, my hunting partner, and that's his dog Scout. Uh, and then that's me on the right with all the gray hair, and that's Copper. So that is a litter mate to Bosco,
I got Bosco.
um, and that is he's not like Bosco. This dog's trouble, nothing but trouble. But he's 1/8 blue tick and 7/8 running walker, and that's the final outcome of my blue tick experiment, my 5 year blue tick experiment, and he's making a pretty good dog. He's making a pretty good dog. But that lion, um, they had been taking quite a few pictures of lions, and it was killing a lot of deer, and ironically, also they had dozens of pictures of these lions eating raccoons off the deer feeders,
Really?
which I thought that was cool. Yeah, and
Easy picking.
but me and do what?
Easy pickings.
Yeah, easy pickings. But me and Slade had went down the day before, and we started that lion late, late in the morning, like 10:30, and we trailed it maybe a mile or so, and it had gotten hot. And the next morning, we came back and we were roding along the river there, and that lion had gone under a gate towards the river, and them dogs started that cat at that gate. They went to trailing on it, and Slade found a track right there by the gate. So we knew it was a lion. And they trailed that sucker for probably 2.5 miles, maybe 2 miles, down to the river, and then back up a creek and through some high fences and onto another ranch that we had permission to hunt, and then back down to the river. And he got in that damn cane down on the river, Carrizo cane, and it was some pretty nasty stuff. It was some pretty nasty stuff. And we was sitting there listening to them trail. I don't know how old the track was, but it was, I mean, when we started the cat, I'm pretty sure the cat was already in the cane. So it was several hours old. And we're listening to them trail down on that river, and then all of a sudden it's just a roar. And they're heading straight down the river towards a big old creek that comes out of the river. And that lion hit that creek. Instead of swimming, he turned around and came back into them dogs. And when he did, it was over. Boy, they were running him like they were tied to him. And then he ended up treeing in a little old. I say he. It was actually a big female, but she ended up treeing in a little old willow tree down on the river. And but it was down in that cane.
Did I pick the right
There
one?
it is. Yeah, I'm not as good a videographer as Brett is, but yeah, that's the best I can do. The other one's the same. The other video is the same lion. I don't know if you got that one there.
Yeah. I can pull it up.
Good. It's kind of a good segue into videos.
But it was hell getting through that cane. It was pretty tough. And somewhere there's a picture. We had to go get some help to help us get the lion out of there. And we tied it up. We had some cowboys, tie it up to a stick and throw it over our shoulders. And that cane was so thick you almost had to walk on top of the cane. It was pretty thick. But I don't know if you got the picture of that, tying that cat up on there or not. But
Which one would that be? Did you send it to me?
yeah, it's that one.
So y'all
Yeah,
tied his legs together and hauled him out of there the old-fashioned style.
Yeah, that's all we could do. It was either that or go find a boat, one of the two. But that was a pretty good hunt. We hunted that lion uh, several times, and just you know they'd have pictures of our dogs at 10 o'clock at night, and then a picture of a lion at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we just kind of kept missing each other's paths, but uh, they finally got it done, and they did a good job trailing on that line. I was sure proud of them. It was for for running dogs. That was a
Ah,
pretty
for
good.
running dogs. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's
Mm-hmm.
hear what you think. What's the difference between you running your bobcats and you hunting these lions with your running hounds?
As I've started catching more lions, my dogs have started trailing more. Um, I think they've developed their nose more, and I've seen some other dogs of certain individuals that went to really catching a lot of lions, and the trailing abilities of their dogs really shot up there, and it's kind of changed my perspective a lot.
Let's hear it.
Take Ruben Lossman for example. When I would hunt with him, you'd start a cat. I mean, if they didn't have it jumped in 5 minutes, he'd let's go find another one. He'd honk them on and let's go. And versus now, my dogs from wanting to catch lions, and then when I do start a cold bobcat, I don't ever stop my dogs off of a cat anymore. I don't care how cold it is. I sit there until the last dog comes in on their own. And just that change in behavior from me has really altered the trailing abilities of my dogs. And
Because you're
uh,
letting them trail more.
yeah, and so it's kind of changed my perspective in that I think some of it. I think, don't get me wrong, genetics is everything. It's important, but I also think that sometimes we can be a little too quick to judge a dog based on genetics instead of it's nurture instead of its nature, if that makes sense.
This is
uh,
where we need Benny back. He was trying to get on earlier, and I can't get him
His
back. I did.
internet's bad.
Yeah, he gets froze up and stuff. But you know, I don't know. I I go back and forth myself with it. Cody and I have had some real in depth conversations about what a dog's exposed to and how he develops depending on the environment he's having to work in, you know, and or what he's like you said about Ruben, you know, if you're hunting and you can pick up and go a mile down the road and start another cat, why mess around letting those dogs trail an old cat? Here we go.
that's
Benny's
exactly.
on here.
Depends. It
Now,
depends on your area too. If you have enough of them cats, some areas have very few cats.
Yeah.
Well, here's a. We've been asked this question before by someone else, but Anthony Nelson, kind of a good time to ask. He said, "Can a grown dog who has never hunted turn out to be a good hunting dog?"
I
What do you
can
think,
answer
Cody?
that from experience. uh, when I was hunting with Ruben had a dog named Mark gave Mark away when he was a very young dog. uh, I got Mark when Mark was probably 6'5", maybe somewhere in there, and he made a very good hunting dog. Very good hunting dog. Now he was a shadow bred dog, came from good genetics. Um, he but the gentleman that had him didn't hunt him. Uh, you know,
Religiously?
he he spent a long time not hunting, and So I think it can happen, but at the same time, I think the probability of it happen is, the probability of a dog becoming a great dog when you start them at a 6-month old pup is still pretty small, much less starting with a fully grown dog that's never hunted. So I think you're doing yourself a better chance by getting a younger dog if you can, you know. But if you just got a pet that you like to death and you want to start hunting it, I say it's never too late to try because it can happen. I've seen it happen. I just don't know that that would be the norm.
It's the exception, not the rule. Let's see. There's Benny sitting up there in the left hand corner with his arms crossed, with lots of things going through his head. I can see
Mad.
it.
Just looks mad already. He already
Oh,
looks mad.
he's fixing to just.
Oh, look at him repping your cup too, Brett.
Look
And he's
at that,
holding up
look
his
at that
cup.
cup,
Merch.
Brown
You
nose.
you can
Brown
get
nose.
that merch on my online store. Be a salesman. What do you think, Benny? Can an old dog, and I'm going to say this so I get Benny's attention, with good genetics, that's never been hunted, take him out at 2 years old, is he going to make a hound?
What a bait.
I brought you in here just for this question.
Mm-hmm.
Here, see this?
That's Jazz's pedigree.
That's about genetics. Just like Cody said, I've seen it happen. Um, there was a rancher over in Bloody Basin that got a dog from Jim Brooks, and he never did anything with the dog, and it turned out to be the rancher was Justin Mark's father-in-law. Uh, after several years had gone by, Justin and his brother-in-law Brian Jennings put a pack of dogs together, and they took this dog that had been hanging around there. Ike was 7 years old and never done anything. He didn't have any chance to do anything. And this dog came from a lot of Dale Lee's breeding. And Jim and Dale hunted professionally together for a while. And so this particular dog made a hand and had so much fight and scrap in him and try that he got into a fight. All the dogs got into a fight with a big Tom, and Ike got in there and got bit in the head and blinded. Um, and that was a dog that was sure enough on his way, and he didn't start till he was after 7. Larry Hendricks had a dog named Sailor that he said he screwed up, and Sailor just trotted along with the rest of everybody and with the mules until he was somewhere after 5, and Sailor went on to make a top dog until he died. And Brett, you've got one right there that not exactly the same story, but was set back. Jazz.
Well, yeah, she was a young dog when I got her, and matter of fact, where I packed my nephew in this last weekend is where we started a lion track, and the lion was going back down into the animus, and this is double rough country, and she went backwards on that lion track, and I couldn't get her stopped and turned around, and I shocked her pretty hard. Now, we were talking about this earlier, and I ruined her for a long time. But
But she still went ahead and made a hand.
she'll dangster trail a lion now, and I tell you something that I think a lot of people don't consider with hounds, because hounds, they're noted for being so hard headed. But the exceptional or the really good hounds are so intelligent. They're so smart. And I
Yeah.
don't think we realize that. We say, oh yeah, that dog's cold nosed, or this dog's whatever. And Jazz, and I got Jazz from Benny, and Jazz goes back to Benny's stuff, and then back to Larry Hendricks, and all that stuff. And the three dogs that I call the terrorists, I kept the whole litter, and they were out of Jazz. And this is how smart Jazz is, and I have the video to prove it. You tell her to go get in her pen, and I had the chain link pins with the flap, the latch on it that flaps down, and you tell her to go get in. She run around, go down the alley, and open the latch and get in her pen. And now that's not only smart, but that's biddable. And I don't know. Now I'd like to say that about the terrorists, but
You had
they're
I had a
smart. But I think they're smarter than me.
yeah,
But
me and my cousin used to go down to the creek and hunt. And it was about 2 miles from where I used to keep my dogs. And my aunt had a dog, or my uncle's wife had just an old black and tan hound. I think it was like 2 or 3 years old. It was just a run around the yard dog. But that dog, every time we'd go down to the creek, it'd hear us, and it would go down there 2 miles away, and it would tree with us. So we ended up trading some dogs, and we started using him. And he was a good dog. Well, he got a blowed up elbow, and we put him on the chain so he quit running. And my uncle's wife took him from us and hit him out. Well, my buddy calls and says, "I think I got your dog." They said this dog's been on lions and bears, and it was this dog, and it was his best bear dog. That was just a yard dog. I couldn't tell you if it was black and tan. That's all I know about it. And you know, but I don't know what his genetics were, but it was good enough where he'd hear us down there at the creek and he'd come running and hunt with us.
what, Cody? How important are the genetics that you use for your running dogs?
That's a question that my answer to that probably is still evolving. I will say this: in my scenario, where I live in a place and I'm fortunate enough to an area where I can catch 80 bobcats a year, um, I think it's a lot less important than a lion hunter in the desert of New Mexico that can catch 5 lions a year, or 6 lions a year, 10 lions a year. Um, I've always thought it was very important. Ruben was big on it. I mean, if it didn't come from Ruben, it was worthless, and uh, and or not necessarily from Ruben, but if it didn't come from Ruben or somewhere Ruben approved of, it was worthless.
Mm.
And Slade, when Slade started out, he got him a couple of dogs uh, that, for all intensive purposes, should not have made good dogs, and they damn sure did. And now, like I said, 80 bobcats a year. I I think you can train a lot more on a dog. I don't think you need as much natural ability. I think a lot of it can be taught, but in other areas, maybe not so much. But
You can get 80 bobcats a year. You're getting all the goody out of the dog. I mean, if he's got anything in him, then you can get it.
Well, it sounds
yeah,
like more
but
repetition will kind of drown out your genetics if you're always on game. I mean, it's not like
yeah,
you don't need the genetics. I'm not saying you don't, but I'm that guy that I don't
exactly.
really care about genetics. Really,
Let's talk
but
to
I don't
Benny. Hold
hunt
on.
enough.
Hold on. Benny, his
Oh, he's
forehead
looking
is
down.
turning red.
I
No,
know.
that's
He's a genetics guy. I
that
know.
doesn't have anything to do with Chris. That's a dermatologist. Hey, I had before I got into genetics, I had a good dog every now and then, but when I got into the genetic side, I had good dogs consistently. And so,
Yeah.
like Cody's talking about, seeing all that game, it's not so much that you have to work on training them. I think the part that's being overlooked in this conversation is he didn't have to untrain them. He
Mm.
didn't have to get them off of everything else because he was showing them the game that he was desiring them to pursue. And so that's a big part of the equation as well. When you're
More
talking
game
about the
than
way
trash.
yeah, that's exactly right. You don't have to get them. You don't have to whip them off coyotes. You don't. They're not looking for something out of boredom. They're looking for what you want because you've got so much of it available.
Coyotes aren't
Yep.
bored.
And
Well,
we
I
have
guarantee
we
you,
have
they're bored whenever I caught up with them.
we have a ton of coyotes. We have a ton of coons. We have a ton of everything. But I think what Benny said is correct. And even to this day, you know, when I go hunting and the cats ain't moving, and uh, at the same time, I've had people come down and go hunting with me, and they think that I catch 80 cats a year, so that means I catch 4 or 5 every time I go hunting, and that's not the case. If number one, if they're not moving, I don't care how many there is, you're not going to catch them. But uh, um, but to this day, when I go out, you've been hunting all night and didn't start a cat, and then you load them up the next night, and you've been hunting 2 or 3 hours, and you haven't started the cat. You can watch them young dogs. They're starting to get a little bored, and uh,
Mm.
that's when they can make liars out of you real quick. They get bored. But um, I've always been blessed, and I'm not trying to take away from me or anybody else, because having a broke pack of dogs is hard to do. And if you have a broke pack of dogs, you have accomplished something. But it's a hell of a lot easier to do when you can catch 80 bobcats a year. Yeah,
They're easy.
I don't, a lot of people on Facebook message me and different things and asking questions, and and my answer a lot of time is, how do you keep your dog so broke? Man, you got the brokest dogs I've ever seen. It's because of where I live. We have enough bobcats to make it easy,
Well, Cody,
compared to you.
also,
Well,
it's it's boots on the ground. It's not just
Yeah,
genetic. You can have a genetic dog all you want, but if you don't got no boots on the ground and you take them out 3 times a year, what do you
They
like?
got it.
No matter how genetic built that dog is,
That's
yeah,
right.
you're not going to make nothing out of them.
That's right. A dog doesn't
Part
make itself. You gotta give it the opportunity.
exactly.
that's
I
exactly
was I was talking to a pretty famous dry ground lion hunter this morning, and he hunted with Dale Lee, and he was talking about Dale. He said I was at an age where I thought, I'd caught quite a few lions and I had it figured out. And he said, but he still had problems with foxes and his dog's kind of trailing off game. And he said he was hunting with Dale Lee, and he said, Dale Lee said, you don't have to put up with that. He said, you don't have to. He said, in other words, get your dogs broke, man. Don't
yeah.
you don't have to put up with that. And he said, after that the light came on. He said, I ride, 10, 12 days, big circles, and never hit a lion track and never have a bark. And then on that next day, hit an overnight track, and those dogs start trailing. I mean, now that's
Ruben used
something.
Ruben used to tell me when he'd get mad at me, he'd say, "Cody, you got to be smarter than the dog." And it was him. It was his way of calling me dumber than the dog. But there's truth behind it. And then Rick Cooley uh, just made a comment that is another factor in that. Alan
Hmm.
Listahl comes down from Minnesota and comes hunting with me. they have a 6-week bobcat season. How in the world can you have a broke set of bobcat dogs when you can run them for 6 weeks? You can't. So they have to run bear, and um, so there's a lot of different factors to where you're at with seasons and limits and population and um,
Well, Cody,
it's not a
how
one size fits all.
how long? What's your longest stretch you've went without catching a bobcat? A week, 2 weeks, a
No,
month?
2 hours.
Like, yeah.
Shit. um,
What's your dry spell? What's your dry spell? What's your longest dry spell where you've been out hunting and
Don't ask me that
haven't caught
question.
something? Me
yeah.
either.
So that's a. Let me break that down a little bit further. Reuben Lossman, for example, he would go, or Norman Davidson, they would hunt pretty much every morning. They would go they'd get up at 5 o'clock and they'd hunt till 9, and then they'd go to the coffee shop. Uh, I hunt like that some. Now that I've kind of gotten into catching lions and stuff, a lot of my hunting is multi-day. I will my general routine is I will load up today, drive to the ranch. I will hunt tonight, tomorrow morning, the next night, the next morning, and then I will load the dogs up and come home.
Wh-
So that's 4 hunts.
Can I
You
ask
know,
a question?
absolutely.
When do you sleep?
we're,
During the
we're
middle of the
taking up
day,
his sleeping time right now.
yeah. If I'm not out, riding around looking for tracks or stuff like that, I'll sleep during the middle of the day. My general rule of thumb is I don't set alarms, I set timers. So when I come in from hunting at night, I set a timer for 4 hours. And so if I come in at 2 o'clock, I'm going to get up at 6 and go hunting. If I come in at 10 at night, I'm going to get up at 2 in the morning and go hunting. Um,
Wow.
4 hours of sleep is about what I need to run on, and then I'll
That's all
then I'll
Ben
get a
Lilly
lot of
said you
sleep.
need.
Then I'll get a lot of sleep during the middle of the day. But that's like 4 hunts. I hunt the dogs, rest them, hunt them, rest them. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of days where I go hunting for 2 nights and 2 mornings and don't catch a cat. But uh, generally speaking, if I don't catch a cat during those 2 days, that's pretty uncommon. It does happen, but it's pretty uncommon.
How how
Um,
how late in the year can you keep hunting, or can you hunt all year?
I hunt year. This past year, I was dealing with my, you know, tick-borne tumor being misdiagnosed as cancer and all of that stuff. So I did not hunt much this summer. And then by the time it got cleared up, my dogs were out of shape. And so I couldn't really start hunting until it cooled off. But in a general year, I will hunt year round. Some guys will shut it down like in July and August. Um, I used to, and Norman would look at me and cock his head and say, it's hot on those cats too, right? And I, yes, sir, Mr. Norman. And so he'd give me a little bit of crap for coming up with. He says, "Man, sure can become good at finding excuses to not go hunting. You better be careful." That's what
Yeah.
he used to tell me.
I still got to get that interview from you.
I know. I know where the phone is, and I need to get it to you.
Norman, well, he ran a lot of coyotes too, didn't he?
Yeah, he ran coyotes and bobcats.
I wonder how that
He
worked.
did.
Just whatever he started.
Same dogs? Same dogs?
Same dog. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
And I think mainly he did it because he enjoyed running coyotes as well. But I think part of him did it just so none of the other cat hunters would want to go hunting with him. He was the only,
Oh,
you know. My dogs run coyotes. I can't hunt with
He
y'all.
kept
So
everybody away. What,
yeah.
Benny, when
When
you
you're
were
hunting,
hunting all the time, did you have a routine that you followed? Did you, I mean, do you need more than 4 hours sleep?
Oh, it just when I was younger, I used to get by on 3 hours,
Hmm.
we
but
all
that was
did.
just because I hunted a lot on the desert and on ranches, and so we would go hunting, and then we'd get done hunting. It'd get too hot or whatever happened, and of course, it depends on how far away you are too. When you're horseback, you get to backtrack and come all the way back just like you got there. Maybe not the same tracks, but it's you don't just load up and drive for a while. So, you get 8, 10, 12, 15 miles away from the house. Well, when you quit hunting, it's just as far to come back to the house. And
Hmm.
then there's other things, and I spent a lot of time with Justin Marks on the ranch, and his wife, they had two little boys, and his wife still wanted us to do our share, and that's understandable. We can't just throw it in her lap. And so by the time we got everything done, and their electricity was a witty light plant, and so somebody had to get up and go turn the light plant off at night. Well, that was usually Justin, and that was somewhere around 10 o'clock. And then way early in the morning, I'd wake up and I'd go start the light plant so that we could get the horses fed and get everything ready, and get some breakfast and make a lunch. And so just, I don't know that I ever had, if I was in one place for a long time like that, I could get a routine. But I've been here at my house and left at 1 o'clock in the morning and gone all the way over to the Ladrone Mountains, um, north of Socorro, and been back home to go to bed that very night. And it wasn't early, but I never did really have a routine.
Hmm. Just wondering. That's interesting how people do things. Chris, what do you do?
How less I can. Lions don't run a circle though. If you could run a circle and get back to your truck, you're all right. But like Benny said, if you start chasing something, that circle that circle turns into all kinds of shapes, and it's usually a line. And you're right, when it gets dark or they lose them, or even if you tree them, you have to turn around and come back. So, but even with those coon hunters, those guys, they're up all night long.
They're
Hey,
nocturnal.
when I
They're
was
nocturnal.
yeah, well, when I used
They
to
don't
coon
have.
hunt, we'd get out at 10 at night, get back at I don't know 2, 3 in the morning, and then I'd be up 6 o'clock going to work. And if you're lucky, you get home and take a little nap, but it never happened that way.
Hmm.
You
You
know,
don't have to stay all night. When I coon hunted, I would go. We left before dark to go to the river down there, either the Verde or the Salt out of Phoenix, and we'd get there about dark and turn the dogs loose. And when I got tired, I found a spot and I wallered in the sand and made a little dugout, and I went to sleep. And when I got 20 or 30 minutes of nap, I'd get up and I'd listen, and when I'd hear those dogs, I was like that other dog that didn't have any experience. Whenever I'd hear the dogs in the distance, then I'd show up and help those guys.
Hmm.
But we didn't get home a lot of the time
that's one-
till 9 o'clock the next morning.
that's one of my
you
favorite
could eat.
things to do. A lot of times is I'll road the dogs, and then you know it'll be 2 o'clock in the morning, nothing's moving, and I'll just turn the truck off and go to sleep. Put one or two dogs in
Mhm.
the bed of the truck, and then that way, if them dogs start one while I'm sleeping, the dogs in the truck will go to raising a bunch of hell and wake me up. But it's different. We have flat land and lots of roads. We're hunting out of a truck. A lot of you guys hunting off mules and horseback, and a lot of big difference there. That's not it's not comparable.
I think I think the difference with mule hunters, especially like with me and Brett, is there's nobody with us. If I could ride as far as I could and call somebody to bring my truck, I'd be a
Yeah.
happy puppy, man. But that's the problem is when you're hunting. But even the bear hunters, these guys just running around in their trucks rigging. I do that, and I've spent a lot of nights out there waiting for a dog to come back in. You know, you can throw down your sweater and some dog food, and if you're lucky, he'll come back and hang around. But even the bear riggers are running around, and if you're it's your area too, you got to know your area. Like next week, I'm going in an area I don't know, but I'm going with someone that knows it. But if you don't know the area, like where I hunt by my house, there's a lot of roads. I know I've hunted it so long that I know if I let go on this road, I got 3 roads I can pick those dogs up on if I have to cut them off. But it's a lot different when you're just running around in a truck. And, like I said, if I had somebody that could just take my truck, watch my GPS, and say he's going to end up over there, oh, how great would that be? Chuck Miller.
So
Chuck
I have
Miller.
I have
Brett.
I
Yeah.
have a question that I would like to ask all three of y'all. So, I talk about lions somewhat, but I'm a bobcat hunter that just happens to catch a few lions. And in my opinion, South Texas bobcats, I think that one of the greatest skills that some of the greatest South Texas bobcat hunters have had is their ability to judge dogs and their ability to judge their pack. And throughout my hunting career, I have in South Texas bobcats are a little bit different than a lot of other hunting because um, the super dry conditions that are more common than not now, you have to have some trailing ability if you're going to catch mini cats. Um, then you get them jumped, and now you got to run them, and break them down and catch them on the ground or tree them. And I think one thing that's improved me over the years is I'm hunting 12 dogs, and my ability to judge my pack as a whole and say, man, I I I really need a little bit more trailing, um, or man, I got a little, and it can happen very quick. I've seen it. Got a little too much trailing going on. I'm not catching as many cats. I need a little more jump, and so judging that pack as a whole is, a talent that a good South Texas bobcat hunter is going to have. And so I would be curious to hear that answer from all three of y'all hunting lions in dry ground conditions and desert conditions. How important is judging your pack versus judging individual dogs, and how that would affect the amount of game that you're catching? Um, you know, in South Texas, a bobcat race, you could have the best trailing dogs in the world, but if you ain't got some good jump dogs and good dogs that are going to run him, you'll never catch him. And at the same time, if you didn't have some good trailing dogs, you never would have jumped him to catch him. So it kind of takes both and finding the best of both worlds. But how much is both of those things necessary for hunting lions and dry down conditions out there the way y'all hunt
Benny?
Man, that's pretty entailed.
them?
That's why we have a pack, because it takes so many different members. You can't have a real good high school choir on the national circuit of high school choirs that everybody's not doing their part. And that's the pack mentality. Um, you got to have the dogs, like you mentioned, Cody. You got to have the dogs that excel at not to say that they won't do something else, but you got to have your strike dogs, the ones that you can count on. Then you got to have your trail dogs, and you got to have the cold trailing dogs. Now, if they're going to throw a loose, I don't see every. I've never been blessed enough to have 15 hounds that figured out a lose equally. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? As good as each other. There's always one or two that are going to stand out and shine. And that's who you look to. And then when it comes to treeing, you get some dogs that they don't want to do anything else. When they get to that tree, their goal is to put their teeth, no matter how they come about it, on their quarry. And so you're talking about a pack, but within that pack, there's all these members that are excelling at their job. Now, just because you have a dog that you look to for a strike dog doesn't mean that those other dogs aren't going to strike. That doesn't mean that
Yep.
just because one dog is a superior tree dog doesn't mean the other dogs are just going to go lay under a bush and wait on that dog to bring you in. You see what I'm saying? But it takes a pack. And I know, I got a good friend in California, John Fry, and he wanted everyone, when he had dogs, he wanted every one of his dogs to do it start to finish. And I get that. But I didn't have that luxury, I guess. I just needed all my dogs to be able to work together as a pack. And when they're trailing, you can pick those out. And, it's like we always have young dogs involved in the race. We have the old dogs, we have the middle-aged dogs, we have the young dogs, and you'll people say, "Oh, that's so and so." Even the pups are trailing today. Well, that just signifies that they're moving along and they're becoming part of the pack, but they're also learning and they're excited to be there trailing the game that you're after. So as far as I get, you do need to read the pack, but at the same time, that pack is made up of. I never hunted with less than 8 dogs, so my pack consisted of 8 individuals.
Yeah. Ruben was always real big about cycling dogs in the kennel. You know, Ruben always liked to leave one dog at home. You know, uh, and his best dog for a long time was Doc, and his best tree dog was Beulah, and his best jump dog was Pecos, and so Ruben liked to leave Doc at home sometimes, or Beulah at home sometimes, or Pecos at home sometimes, and he always told me that same thing. He said, put them young dogs in a situation to where they have to do it. And, one thing that I've always noticed is I can't tell you how many times I've lost a very good dog and thought, oh, it's over. You know, man, that dog started 90% of my cats. Now I'm not going to start. Something always takes their place, and something always steps up and rises to the occasion. But that's
Well,
one thing, Ruben, leaving some dogs at home.
the individuals in that pack know each other's strong points, and they also know who's in charge. You know,
Yeah.
beyond you being the alpha in charge of your pack, there's a pecking order below you, and
Yeah.
everybody has their place. And so I didn't have a problem leaving a dog at home. I always had 20 dogs. I didn't take them all, but I did sometimes mix and match like you're talking about just to shake things up. Now, I had a lead dog, Derek, and I don't remember what was wrong with Derek. He didn't go one day, and 2 other dogs stepped up and took Derek's place, just like that. Boom, that day. And I thought, well, a lion was seen crossing the road last night at 9 o'clock. We were there the next morning at daylight, and we're just here exercising dogs. But no, they trailed that lion, and it was a female sneaking around pulling tricks, and nobody could catch her. We didn't catch her either. But the dogs excelled without their normal leader, and 2 separate dogs picked up the slack and figured out those loses. until it just got too hot in the day and all the scent left.
So, Chris, what do you say? What dogs do you keep? I mean,
I'm gonna ride some coattails on this one because the choir is such a perfect analogy of that because you have your bass, you have your tenor, you got your backup singers, and if you just have a bass, it don't sound so good. You just have the tenor; they all just work together so well, and that's your dogs. You got your strike dogs, your tree dogs, your trail dogs. To me, that's kind of your main pack, right? I mean, you get a good strike dog, and if he strikes, you know he's on a lion or a bear, whatever you're chasing. And then when you got dogs running it, opening up, you know they're trailing it, you know. But also, I like Cody's. We've talked about this before. The replacements, you know. I think if you're a guide and you're not just some dumb guy like me who goes out and maybe I'm like a pack of cigarettes called Lucky Strike. If I get lucky, I'll strike something. I'm not out there to make money. You know what I mean? So the guide, he'll take his best dogs every time because he's making money. But a lot also, this goes back to my theory of how good a houndsman are you if you're just buying dogs. I think a guy who buys dogs, I'm not going to say he's not a good houndsman. I think he's just a guy running dogs. But a guy who raises dogs, like that choir, the guy who's running that choir, the school choir, has probably been with these people for years, since they were in ninth grade, sixth grade. And he knows, you know, when they get up into the high school choir, they made the choir. He knows those people. And that's your dogs. I think if you're raising dogs on your own, even though you started dogs and you start raising dogs and you're watching those dogs grow, I think you're going to know your pack. You're going to know. A good example is I had Dirty and my other dog. They started a Pepper. I found an old line track in the road. He's bear hunting. So I put Dirty and Pepper on it. And they were going. They started it. It was hard to start. I got them started. I got them running. They're out about 800 yards, just working it, you know, nice and slow. Well, my Yucky dog, he's just a young little teenager choir guy who wants to get out there and rip on that guitar and be center stage. He broke his chain, his rig chain, and he took off about 3,000 miles an hour. I didn't see him break the rig chain. I was checking tracks. I look back, I'm like, hey, where's Yucky? And then I hear him. He's out there and he just comes in hot. And the other dogs, even though they're running a trail, they're like, what the heck? So even one dog that's not the trailing good dog can just ruin a hunt. I'm not saying he's going to ruin the dog, but he definitely will ruin a hunt, you know. But I know that about him because I've raised him since he's a puppy, you know. So you got to know your pack. Like Cody was saying, you got to know your pack. And like Benny was saying, they got to work together. Choir don't work together ain't gonna sound good.
don't sound good. Well,
So
Cody,
have any of y'all ever noticed competition between dogs? Where
Oh, yeah.
if one dog started that cat, one of your other good dogs wouldn't put much mouth in it, you know, and vice versa, you know. And Ruben had a pair of dogs named Doc and Benny, and it was comical, you know. I mean, if Benny started the cat, he was just the best dog on the planet. And if Benny didn't start that cat, Benny was pissed off, you know. And it's really funny seeing competition between the dogs like that.
I'll tell you what I had is I had an old dog that I really really liked. His name was Old Bo, and he was probably one of the first dogs I had. Anyway, I was hunting with an old time dry ground lion hunter, and we were hunting. I think we were on our second day, and Old Bo went over there. You know, these dogs were over here, and they were trying to trail something. Old Bo went up on the hill over there, and he bawled. You know, and you could tell he would bawl and he would look up, and he'd bawl and he'd look up, and he kept doing that. And Keith said, "Man," he said, "these dogs are on that lion track. That old dog over there is trying to pull these dogs off that track." And I started thinking back, and he was old. He'd already got to be about probably 12 years old. And I got to thinking back about different times when things would happen. And he told me, he said, some of those old dogs, that's what they do. He said they can't keep up, and they're used to being the leader, and they'll try to pull other dogs off. And I realized at that time that had been happened to me quite a bit in the past. And the next morning, I went out with him, and I was just hanging my head. I mean, I just felt terrible. And he asked me, he said, what in the world's wrong with you this morning? I said, Dadgummit, Keith. I said, you might as well have told me you seen my wife coming out of a motel room with another man. I said, that just broke my heart, that old dog. But I never hunted that dog again. He retired in my yard. I never took him out again. But in his day, he was a good dog, real good dog. But anyway, have y'all seen that any time?
Sure, but Brett, that's part of your learning and growth as well.
Oh, yeah.
You
It was
you
something
can't
I
be
never even considered.
you can't be a good houndsman if you don't know your hounds and if you don't comprehend hounds and if you don't you gotta just like Cody's words, boot or whoever said you got I get with Chris, boots on the ground. You gotta be amongst your dogs. You can't just turn them loose and wait for the switch to activate on your GPS and say, "Oh, well, they're treed. Let's see if we can go get them." Then you don't know what the hell took place. And you can watch all you want on that GPS, but that doesn't tell you what the hell took place.
So,
You got to speak dog. And a lot of hunters I've encountered over the years don't speak dog. And I've just met a few people, not a lot. I said a lot, but not a lot. But I have met a few hunters that just don't speak dog, and
Savi.
it sounds funny, but I mean, anybody who spends the amount of time you have to spend with your pack of dogs to have a good pack of dogs, you speak dog, you know, and I mean, I had a dog named Bruno one time that was a bandit sob, and I could tell you the second he barked if it was trash or not, and but you got to understand dogs, and a few guys out there that don't speak dog, they all they know is that a bark is good, and that's not the case. That's not the case.
What?
It's because they speak Garmin. They speak Garmin now. A lot of these guys are
Garmin,
ruined
that's
with the
exactly
Garmin.
right.
I think the Garmin has ruined a lot of guys. I'm not saying it ain't good. It saved me a lot of gas money. I
Yeah.
think they're so used to looking at that Garmin, and that, like you said, they turn loose, get a tree, and hope it's not a coyote or fox or whatever.
What? Cody?
I watched a
Oh, go ahead.
this is funny here. Um, and I'm not gonna say a name.
Come
Um,
on.
but
It was all right
so
with me.
there's a there's a there's a very controversial individual in the competition coon hunting world named Norman Starling, and I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of him, but he's a hoot now. He's it's like an episode of the Housewives of
New York.
it's something else, but I don't remember who it was. I don't remember if it was him or somebody else, but he films these hunts sometimes and they're live, and but this competition coon hunter was holding his Garmin, sitting here looking at it, and his dog was started treeing in the background. And any one of us would have, I mean, instantly said, that dog's treed. And it was just funny watching him looking, video of him looking at that handheld. And then the light came on the handheld, like you know what it does when it says your dog treed. And then he went, tree that dog. And it was like, man, that dog was treed for 20 seconds before he called. But that man did not know that dog was treed without that Garmin telling him it was treed. And I was that was just
I
eye
have
opening for
I
me.
have to interrupt here. I've hunted with Cody. Me and Cody went to Oklahoma and he caught two bobcats where a lot of people said you couldn't catch one.
That's a
But
story in itself, Brett.
yeah, but let me tell you something. Cody not only speaks dog, but he speaks Garmin too, because he knew what those dogs were doing by just looking at that Garmin screen.
Yep. You got to know
I,
your
I
dogs,
speak
though. You got to know your dogs,
I
though, right,
speak.
Cody?
Yeah, that gets back to the pack. Cody knows his dogs.
Yep.
And he has a nice
They
Garmin screen. I don't know where he got it, but it's a nice one.
the new one's the Garmin Tread. Brett called it mission control. We had all these damn screens up on the
So,
truck,
man, I can't get those on my mule.
and I still
Yeah.
have pictures of Brett with this computer screen mounted to a saddle horn. Walking that old mule through the desert with this 10-inch computer screen. It but uh but yeah, I do use Garmin a lot. I use the tread a lot, especially in country with lots of roads and I help my dogs a lot, uh, if I can, you know. And some people may disagree with that and say leave them alone and let them figure it out. But in a I get out and look for tracks a lot and try to help them give a direction or, um, a lot of times by looking at that Garmin, I can tell where the cat's going, and maybe it's not quite a good enough trail that them dogs can work it up, but by looking at that screen, I can, I'll drive my truck around to where I know that cat crossed, and then let them dogs, if when they do come in, they come into me, and then we're already in the location, you know, to where the trail may be a little better.
Since, Cody, since you've been running bobcats for so long, and you've been running some lions here for the last few years, what do you have some dogs that prefer lions over bobcats, or vice versa?
Yes. I have a dog. I don't have it no more. I, I gave him to Slade. But if 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 you're trailing a lion, that dog's at the truck. He's a bobcat dog. That's all there is to it. He don't want nothing
He
to do with
considers it
those lions.
trash.
And but like one thing that amazes me is my jump dogs like Eve and Stocky. Those are the two main ones. Um, Never bark trailing on a bobcat. If they bark on a bobcat, the race is on. It's they jumped it. That's their job. They're jump dogs, and they will trail the heck out of a lion.
I'll be dang.
And but they will not trail a bobcat. Um, just something about that scent is stronger, and they like it enough, and it's enough to trigger them to make them want to trail. But when I'm catching lions, most of the time when I'm catching a bobcat, uh, I'm going to have 12 dogs on the ground, and I'm going to have four, maybe five dogs trailing that trail. And then I'm going to have four or five dogs swinging out wide looking. And when I am trailing a lion, I don't have the swinging out looking
They're
dogs
tighter.
as hard. Yeah, the dogs are tighter. They something about it. I mean, I could theorize all day long, but uh, they bark more, they trail more. It's very very easy, um, trailing a real good lion trail. It can be very easy to think, oh, they're running, they got it jumped. And no, they don't have it jump. They're just barking a lot more than they normally would on a bobcat. You know.
Can you catch a
Uh,
bobcat with one dog down in your country?
uh,
Just one more
I
dog.
mean, I have. I
Consistently?
no, no. I mean, I'm sure that there's been some great dogs throughout. I mean, with Doc, that dog of Rubens, you could have caught him somewhat consistently, but and 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 that's such a loaded question, and the fact that conditions just affect that so much. And South Texas is so varied on conditions. I mean, it can be the best conditions in the country, and then 4 months later, it can be some of the worst conditions in the country. I mean, it's dry, it rains, it greens up, it's pretty, and then it gets dry again. So, on great condition days. Now, one thing, uh, Alan Listaw and Corey came down uh, from Minnesota hunting with me this year. And, they told me that if you're in Minnesota and you're hunting bobcats in the snow and your only goal is to kill bobcats, you don't care about training dogs. All you want to do is just kill the most bobcats possible. One dog is all you would turn loose. They said anything more than two is slowing your race down. And I find that you know just goofy. It's so backwards, but um, that's just how things can vary from one part of the country to the other.
Well,
I
that's
would
that's my
love to
next
come out.
question, Cody. You went to Oklahoma because they were kind of saying that because your dogs hunted in Texas, you couldn't catch them in Oklahoma. Is that kind of the gist of it?
No, um, I've probably forgotten what the gist of it was, but um, you know, um,
Is it conditions that make it harder, or is it a different
no,
region of
the
cats?
conditions in Oakland. When I refer to conditions, I'm referring to trailing conditions, scent conditions. The
Oh,
trailing
sure.
conditions in Oklahoma, at least when I was there, were the best conditions that you could ever want. I think some of it is uh, the brush. They have what they call cut over after they cut them trees down. That vine grows with briars on it, kind of a rose hedge kind of stuff. Um, but they said, uh, they say that them cats run 4, 5, 6 hours, and you know that their dogs could catch them. You, but uh, I don't think it was because of Texas. I think the main thing they were trying to say was that dogs that aren't acclimated to run in those briars, and then a lot of it wasn't geographical. I think a lot of it was just talking about the breed of dogs. Uh, would have been very similar to them saying, "Oh, blue ticks can't catch cats here." Um, but
What?
uh, a good cat dog's going to be a good cat dog anywhere. He may not be the best in certain areas, but a good cat dog's going to try to catch a cat no matter where you put him on the ground.
Well, on my way home, I stopped and got to interview Hootie Shaw. And Hootie Shaw was running lots and lots of cats, and he spent a lot of time right there in that area where Cody and I hunted. And I told him the story about Cody going up there and catching a couple bobcats, and Hootie is an older man, and he just said, "Well, I want to look at those dogs." He probably asked me 5 times if I had those dogs out in my truck, and I mean, he wanted to go look at them. He said, "Y'all caught 2 bobcats in 3 days. And I said, yes, sir. You got those dogs out here in your truck, don't you? I want to go look at them. And I said, well, no, it's a friend of mine's there. They're not my dogs. Oh, and he wanted to know about them. That's for sure.
Adamant.
Yeah, he was something else.
Those cats are hard. They're hard cats to catch up there. They don't tree. They catch on the ground. They've got good cover. They can run in. Um, you know, conditions were really good. You didn't really need cold trailing dogs as much. Um, and they run hard. And then that, you saw them dogs tore up with the hair knocked off their legs and stuff. I mean, they were tough to catch. I mean,
That's
I'm not discrediting the bobcats any because they were tough to catch.
what I was
Awesome.
wondering, and maybe you would know. Now you went up there and you caught 2. If you kept running in that country, do you think your dogs would keep? I mean, because they got pretty tore up in there. Do you think they'd keep running as hard to catch?
You know, hunting in prickly pear flats down here, I think that if you hunt in them a lot, your dogs slow down. Um, I think you'd still catch them. Um, maybe you would start having some of those 3 or 4 hour cat races that people talk about.
Okay.
I don't know. What I do know is this: is that my dogs are not capable of running as hard as they run for 4 hours. I
Yeah.
mean, if my dogs had to run a cat for 4 hours, several of my dogs would fall over dead. And now, maybe if you hunted in that stuff so much, they wouldn't run so hard, and that wouldn't be an issue anymore. I think it would. I think it would slow them down some.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how much would they learn to get around in it better, you know, versus just pushing through it? So, I mean, when
That's
you bring a dog down to my country and hunt in that prickly pear, they're going to come out yellow with so many thorns in them until they learn to get around in it. So it'd be tough to say. I don't know.
What'd you say, Benny?
that's part of that acclimation process.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
what can anybody got any concluders?
We didn't get to. It's already what is it? We had an hour and a half. Almost.
Yeah, we're almost 2 hours.
We didn't even get to his Mexico trip.
Oh, I
Bring him
know.
back on.
We can have him
Can
back.
you sum it
Cody.
up? Can you give us a little teaser for 5 minutes, a couple minutes?
Sure.
Oh,
You want to answer
Rowdy
some of these
Hound.
questions? Let me read off some of these questions. We've kind of ignored the audience we have here. Let me go back through
You
some
don't
of
need
the.
So
that
Rowdy
audience is
Houndsman just said that he said he started hunting cats this year after hearing Cody and others talk about how hard it used to be to hunt them. I had 2 real good races today, and so that's I always like seeing new people uh, uh, try to get started in the hound business, and so I wish him the best of luck. I hope he catches a truck full of them.
Let me see.
You run your dogs at once. Great Grady Scott.
I
Cody, do
run
you
them.
run all your dogs at
Yeah,
once or split them up?
I run them all. I dump them on the ground and start driving, and uh, yeah, no, I run them all at once. No,
How
they
out?
they
This is
they
a good
get wore
question.
out.
How far away do you guys have to travel from your house to hunt?
What you got, Benny?
So um, I I travel 3 hours a lot, 4 hours a lot if I'm hunting for 2 days. But I mean, I have to travel 10 minutes or less even to go hunting.
to catch a
I mean, it just
bobcat.
depends on what I'm doing. Yeah.
Benny,
When
you
I
used to
hunted the
drive?
Guadalupe, when I hunted the Guadalupes, I was 2 hours away. I had a ranch in the Guadalupe, so I could step out the door. But I have hunted as far as 15 hours away.
Chris?
Yeah.
I'm about 30 minutes, whether I'm in South Arizona or North Arizona. I got about 30-minute drive to go hunt.
I I I think that for me to get into better good country, I probably should drive a couple hours, hour and a half,
Good country, yeah.
good country. But I'm lazy, and I get out and I think, oh man, I could sit in that truck for a couple hours and drive, or that Tom might have come over Robledo last night, and I'll be gone somewhere else. So I can just throw my mule in and be 15 minutes, be right there. Or, I caught an old lion down there on the river, 10
Yeah,
minutes from the
in your
house.
in your
So,
fancy old buggy.
yeah, I
Got your
did it.
fancy buggy now.
Yep, I did that
To,
out of my buggy without a mule. It was,
What you
but
got to remember when you're lion hunting or bear hunting or anything, lions are where you find them. Period.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have to travel 3 hours to get to an area where I have a decent chance of possibly catching a lion. There's no lions where I live. So,
Okay,
and
here's a question.
Bob,
Now, oh, I'm sorry, Cody. Go ahead.
no, bobcat hunting, I don't have to travel at all. But if I want to catch a lion, I've got to travel at least 3 hours.
Does anybody know Molly Ottman? Ottman? Ottman?
That's my PI partner.
She wants to know more about Cody.
That's because she's an
Who's
investigative journalist.
She
Knows
says, she says, Cody King,
you.
can you tell us about yourself?
You just did for 2 hours.
yeah, I'm a I'm a dumbass that spends all of my free time out in the middle of nowhere running around with a bunch of dogs in my truck. That pretty much describes it. But no,
Don't forget all the
I
money for
live
the
in
dog house.
yeah yeah that but now I live in South Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm a houndsman, married with 3 daughters, and uh, own a roofing and waterproofing business, construction company, and work for a living and hunt when I can. That's that's about it. And
Okay.
that's one the one thing about a houndsman is if you're a real houndsman, there's not much else to tell. yeah, there's not much else to tell.
There's not much living after that. Yeah. Hey, Rowdy Houndsman said I may have missed it because I got here late, but do you guys have an estimate on how long an average cat race is
Oh,
there where you hunt?
So that varies so much from where you are, but I mean, an easy cat is going to run less than 10 minutes in tree. A hard cat is going to run up to 45 minutes and catch on the ground. There's always exceptions to that. I ran one the other day. Me and Slade ran one for an hour and 40 minutes. And that's the longest race that I've had in a decade, maybe even my life. An hour and 40 minutes. But
Benny,
but yeah,
how about trailing lions? Have you ever trailed a lion? What's the longest you've ever trailed a lion and still caught him? And I'm talking about days, time.
Oh crap, Brett.
My job to ask questions.
just so
Yeah.
you know, my wife just texted and said Good answer when you mentioned your wife and kids. So my my wife's stalking our Facebook feed here. That's for
Oh
sure.
yeah,
Got to watch out for you.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can tell you that I've been after a particular lion.
No,
Okay, let me go.
consecutive days. Consecutive days. Say you start a track today and you stayed on him, and then even if you had to come back the next day or the day and stayed on him till you get him caught.
3.
3 days.
Yeah.
So I have
Cody,
a question for Benny, really quick. From trailing a lion, the dogs have jumped that line. It is now a jumped race. How long? What's the longest you've ever had one run?
They've outrun us or out tricked us. There's been times that we didn't ever produce on a jumped race.
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Turn their, they turn their sin off.
All
Better know it.
Well, they
That's a
just
rabbit hole.
watched. They watched Old Yeller, and they learned how those raccoons will backtrack on their own tracks, and I think those damn lions do that
yeah.
too.
Absolutely. I've caught him doing
Down.
it.
A lot of people have told me over the years that a lion won't run. Lions can't run. Once you jump them, it's over with. They run 400 or 500 yards, 5 minutes, and it's it. They don't run. And uh, I've had bobcat hunters say, who wants to run them lions? They don't run. There ain't no race. I want to hear a race. They don't run. And I believed it, and it's true to an extent, in some form of fashion. But most of the people that say that are cat hunters that haven't caught many lions. And it's one thing that I've learned is I've ran some of them a little. I'm not saying I've ran them for hours, but I've ran some of them a lot longer than 5 minutes. People talk like once they're jumped, they're
Yeah.
easy, and that's not always the
Let
case.
it that used to be more true 30 years ago than it is today.
I believe that.
The whole lion hunting village has changed drastically. The weekend warriors, the guys that buy dogs, the guys that just go out and want to hunt lions, and they don't stay with their dogs as much as the old guys used to stay with dogs. It gets back to my comment about the Garmin deal. If they don't make an attempt to go with their dogs and they rely solely on that Garmin, well, they're not going to learn exactly what's going on. And those lions are going to get away because you're not there to help your dogs. And the only way that you're going to get a top notch pack of dogs is to be there with those dogs and be the alpha, be the leader of the pack, and encourage them the right direction and produce game. And now this trout fishing mentality that catch and release every single lion, that's not necessarily bad for the dogs. That's bad for educating lions. You get lions now, they hear a dog or pack of dogs coming, and they get up and start trotting. So let's if you get a lion that's actually flat out running, then that statement is true. They don't have much lung. But if you get a lion that gets up a half a mile ahead of your dogs and starts trotting, they can trot forever, and your
Well,
dogs can't keep up.
that's that same thing. If they can trot at 6 miles an hour and you're only trailing at 4 miles an hour, you're never going to catch them.
You'll Yeah,
And a
never.
lot of the South
So
It's
Texas
also
bobcat hunters never really hunted lions, and what little experience, and even me when I first started catching lions, what little experience I had with lion is if someone would call me with a kill, I'd go turn the dogs loose on you know a lion with a full belly, and he'd run 200 yards and go up the tree. And that's not a fair comparison to catching lions out in the, you know,
Yeah,
out in the
that's where
bush.
I was gonna go next. Conditions, full belly. If he just ate 20, 30 pounds of meat, he ain't gonna want to run. You want to just get up in a tree and let them dogs bark at him. You know, an old one, old female or an old male with no teeth that don't eat real good, they don't got the energy to run. So it's all, and then it's all about your terrain. You've hunted in Tonto Basin, like it, dirty country. Them lions can disappear in 2 seconds, and your dogs can't even get to where they think about they want to go. You know,
See,
so
and
it's
we
all
hunt
about
in
terrain,
dirt
just
down
like
here.
conditions. Mhm.
Okay. What about the Mexico trip?
I don't know what. I mean, I hunt in Mexico quite a bit, so I don't exactly know what Mexico trip we're talking about.
But
Oh
when you
no,
go
not
to
the Mexico
Mexico
trip.
to hunt,
No,
typically you're
I think
going
we're
to typically you're
the.
going to hunt lions.
Are we
What
talking
were you
about the
saying, Chris?
African trip? Didn't he just go? Didn't you just go
No,
to Africa or somewhere?
I went to Africa a while back, but he mentioned Mexico, and I don't know
Oh,
what.
you know what, Brett? Are we talking about your Mexico trip that we've been talking
No,
about,
he was talking
Cody?
about Cody's. Somebody was. I just thought there was some kind of
That was
It was
Greg
like
something.
the
was about.
first comment. It was Eli Robeson, whoever that is.
Hey, real quick, what do you guys think about old Jason Miller catching that Jaguar on his camera down there?
It's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
And it's already been used for propaganda.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That we were just talking about social media, and it's like prescription pills. They can be good for you, or they can be bad for you. That's social media.
2 weeks 2 weeks ago, I was in Bisbee.
Hmm.
When I saw you, Chris, I was headed to Bisbee within a couple of days. And I've been to Bisbee numerous times. And I don't care where you go in Bisbee, there's not even a dead saguaro cactus.
Mm.
Yeah.
Would
It's funny that you mentioned that. I'm in a Facebook group called Texas Black Panthers and Cougars Evidence and Lore, but it's I've kind of become friends with some of the people that run it, and when that picture was posted, that's one of the moderators of that group said the exact same thing, Benny. So I find that kind of interesting that you mentioned that.
Mm.
Yeah.
all right, guys. Anything else? Final thoughts, concluders.
Don't
I
get
got one
dogs, or you'll
thing.
be broke.
Words of
Were y'all talking
wisdom.
about this picture?
Yep.
That picture I think's fake. Is that a fake picture? I was talking about
It looks
Jason
fake
Miller.
to me.
Photoshop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jason
this looks
Miller.
fake.
Jason Miller's from South Arizona, Cody. If you go to YouTube, look up Jason Miller Outdoors. He has one on a trail camera down here, like a real one. He's excited about it.
Yeah,
Jason Miller
that's
Outdoors. Go check him out.
yeah. I will. I will check it out. But
Like
well, guys,
last
thanks for
week.
having me on.
Yeah.
I
Well,
sure
thank you,
appreciate it.
Cody. Come back.
Brett, I've got a question for
I
you.
am fixing to not too terribly long in the next couple of months headed to Mexico to attempt to collar a Jaguar again. So we'll
Nice.
we'll see how that goes. One of these days I'll get y'all some footage of that. But
I'm gonna be headed down there. I'm not sure when. We're still working on it. To
Mhm.
with our buddy Tony
Rivera.
Rivera. Yeah. I talked to him
Yeah.
quite a while on the phone, and we're kind of trying to make a plan. So I think I got everything lined up where I can make it. What's up, Benny?
that just leads right into my question. Have you had anybody put money in your pocket yet?
Uh, you know, that makes me nervous. uh,
Oh yeah,
Well, oh,
that's why Benny has to do this.
is
you
there
know,
anybody that sent you money to
yes,
help finance the trip to go interview Tony Rivera and the Jaguar hunt?
yes. I've had some people join my Patreon. I've had some people
Super
join my
chats.
YouTube membership. Uh, W Hunting Supply. We worked out a deal for us to provide these podcasts. You know, from Chris is going to do it from time to time, and and for me to go and sit down with some of these older guys and talk to them, you know, and provide the audio. This is kind of a this live is kind of a test to see how
Right.
it works, how it will convert to the podcast world, you know. So I like to do the lives. I like, you know, this is good for us. I mean, and it's easy. I sit in my office and can do it. And so I think I mean, I would, you know, like to find other sponsors. I mean, that would be great. Uh, I don't so much look for individuals because they're like most of us, you know, they're out trying to make a living and do whatever. Uh, I, what I really think is that the companies that we spend money with should try to support us in some way. But and W did step up. You know, me and Buddy talked to each other and we worked out a deal, and I think, and that's, you know, and when we have someone like that support us, we need to buy our stuff from them. You know, we need to support
I can
them.
tell you I can tell you that uh, I've 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 always bought most of my stuff from Outdoor Dog Supply, and not for a rhyme or a reason. That's just the first person I ever bought something from, and that um, and that's just who I bought stuff from. There wasn't a reason, and there I will uh, start buying from W Supply because of them supporting you a little bit and
Thanks,
helping
Eli.
out with those. Yeah, there's a little bit of Mexican beer money.
There you go. Some tequila.
A little bit of
But
penicillin maybe for the
I was
water.
I was
Well,
glad to see W support you, Brett.
Yeah, and they've helped me out in the past, and it's not that we had a disagreement because we didn't. It was just that we kind of miscommunications with each other. And you know, this podcast world has gotten big. I you know, I listened to the Houndsman XP podcast today and with Chris talking about what they're doing, and it's amazing. I mean, they're they're they've got several shows that they got going on, and they're creating their own network, and I think that's really cool. I think that
They're
it's
putting in
it's
their
a
time for sure.
yeah, and you know, and they've I think I didn't realize how big the coon hunting world was.
Oh, it's huge.
It's
Oh
huge.
Huge.
yeah.
And like Josh Michaelis, I know I butcher his last name all the time. I'm going to be on his podcast, uh, and he's with Joy Dog Food, I believe, and he's talking about some of these competition coon hunts. These guys winning $70,000. It's
Didn't someone
amazing.
just win 100 grand? What was that? That Oaks?
They
Oaks?
win
What's that
pickup trucks
big
all
one?
the time.
I
Yeah, I
never.
got some dogs that treat some coons pretty good sometimes,
Hey,
man. I might have to enter some of
I
that.
treated a daytime coon the other day.
Oh, big one,
Yeah,
big one.
Yeah,
we
huge.
have to take old Taco and entry fee and see what I can get, buddy.
Yeah,
But
but no,
gentlemen,
I
I'm gonna
think.
head out. But I
Oh,
sure appreciated it
Cody,
very
thank you.
much.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Cody.
The, Benny, it
Hey,
was
Cody.
nice to meet you.
You
Y'all,
too, Cody.
I get the kennels done. I'll take you a video so you can
We
post
want
my
to share it.
kennels.
I'm gonna come. I'm gonna come
I
down
can.
and see you. I want to come down and make a little video series of hunting with you down in South Texas, and
I'm ready to do it.
let everybody see how you do it.
Y'all ought to come. Chris, you ought to come with him, and y'all can bring some of them dry ground lion dogs down here, and we'll put a bobcat on them and
We don't want to be
and
Right?
embarrassed.
No,
watch what
no.
they can do.
Hey, I sent you one.
You got coyotes. You got coyotes. I'll show you what
Ton
I
of
can
'em.
do. Not supposed to, but I will.
I
Yeah, yeah.
I sent Cody a dry ground lion hound.
Dan the man.
Dan the man.
Yeah,
But
Dan the man ate a ate a bad fate in South Texas. He couldn't get past javelinas and rattlesnakes, and they finally caught up with him. He, uh, but he damn sure went. You
he
know.
was a hunting sucker.
Yeah. Well, you guys need anything? Let me know, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Cody.
Deal. Thanks.
See,
All right, guys. What do you think?
Yep.
Anything? I got.
I'm
I
I'm just
think
ready to go to I'm ready to go to Nairi.
Let's go, Benny. My phone just went dead. Let me see. I got a good story since we still got a few people in here. Let me see if I can do this. Okay. There's a guy, and he might even be in here. I don't know. He said he was going to
welcome
try
to the
to
bar.
come by. His name's Hayden Powell, and he'd
Oh yeah.
commented, huh?
Did he come in here?
I think he was. He said he was going to try to drop in. I don't know if he did or not. But anyway, he he's commented on some of my videos, and then I watch his videos, and I don't. Sometimes I don't pay enough attention to who people are, and next thing I know, I seen him on Clay Newcomb's podcast. Is the Bear Grease
Render.
podcast, Render, and this guy is a musician and a good musician, and he sang a song, and I listened to him, and I sent him a message, and I said, "Man, uh, my wife had written me this poem years ago, quite a few years ago, and I was wondering, do you ever use? Because he's a singer songwriter, he writes his own songs and everything." And I said, would you ever put music to someone else's lyrics? And he said, yeah. He said, I'd love to. And he did this. To me, let me see if I can get it to play. It's still amazing to me. I can't, if I can find it. Shoot.
This is this the one you've had for several years?
Yeah, that uh, that poem that my wife wrote. Of course, my wife has written lots and lots of poems. She's real talented like that. But she wrote this for me. Let me see if it'll play. Nope. No, I don't know how to do it. Dad gummit.
We'll have to practice it.
Wait a minute. No. Let me see if I can do this.
When Cody was talking about you said you couldn't get all those screens and stuff on your mule. There you go.
Let me see if this will play and see if y'all can hear it. Dad gummit. No, I can't see my. We'll cut this out for the podcast. Hold on, let me go back to here. Sorry, guys, but I really want you guys to listen to this. We've already lost 20 viewers.
I think Benny's wife should change that picture in the background.
No, this
It
is
needs to
because
be-
of Brett.
It needs to be a trafula tree. Trafula trees.
This is because of Brett and his wife Tammy
Oh.
calling me tulip. Here's a bunch of poppy.
No. If you made them a bunch of trafula trees, it'd be more fitting. 'Cause that's what they used to make thneeds out of. You know,
But
the
anyway,
Lorax
I was
used to.
gonna. There is one person that I'm aware of that believes Brett could get those screens mounted on his mule, and that is Tyler.
Just has to build him something that bolts right onto his saddle horn.
When Tyler said, "You are the," what did he say? What was the word? Professor Gadget.
Man, I can't. I'm having a hard time with this guy.
Yeah, you have to figure it out.
Hold on. I'm going to have it. We're at the end of our deal anyway, so. Dang it.
This is like a cliffhanger.
Oh, well.
Did you find any? Did you go look at your property over here, Benny?
Yeah, I spent 4 days looking all around Payson. I found one piece of property, but it had too many neighbors. It's not for sale. I think I know the guy that owns it in Glendale, but I'm really leaning towards headed back over towards Peoples Valley and Skull Valley and Kirkland over in that area.
Where's that at?
West of Prescott.
Oh, yeah. You know, there's a lot of lions, and that's Yucca, Arizona.
I'll tell you where there's a lot of lions in New Mexico.
Can you guys hear that?
No. I'm surprised you can't share screen it.
Yeah, I don't know what I did wrong. And now it's not even. Oh, well. I screwed up.
Next time we'll figure it out before next week.
Sorry, guys. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks, Benny, for coming by. Chris.
And Benny didn't get kicked off this time. The internet held up.
I know. He did good. Did real good.
I got in late from work. I cleaned out the wood stove. I threw some more wood in on top of the embers and fixed some coffee. A little sucking up here, and
some good stuff.
got on.
Let me tell you about me and Benny's visit. He says, I'm gonna be in Cholo. Let's go do some lunch. We went to the first restaurant, closed. Second restaurant closed. We ended up going to another little restaurant. I thought, oh, cool. I'll be sitting around talking to a legend about cat hunting. You know what happened? He sat around and talked to my daughter about welding. They had more welding conversation than we talked about cat hunting. Oh, Cody Lynn stole the show.
Okay, see what happens here.
Man, Brett ain't going to give up, is he?
I'm hard-headed. See if you can hear this.
There it is.
He lives a life of quiet desperation, and he wonders if he'll ever find a way to make it to the trail that he calls freedom, where he won't have the worries of the day. His mind is filled with many empty memories of working for the man with no delay. But he's missed every sunrise in the mornings, why shorten through another bill to pay? And he prays that he has a purpose here. Sometimes it's just too much to contemplate. You know he must face his biggest fear, that he was born 100 years too late. There comes a time in every man's existence where he pauses at the dreams upon the shelf. He traded youth for status and convenience when he bargained for another dime of wealth. But the whisper of the trail is gently calling, and it beckons him to come and find himself and seek the wisdom of the wild places, just to mule some old hound dogs and no one else. So he unfolds a dusty map on the table, and he plans his destination in the dawn. Another hour and he will watch that sunrise, and another day he'll be as good as gone. And he prays that he has a purpose here. Sometimes it's just too much to contemplate. You know he must face his biggest fear, that he was born. Yeah, he was born. He was born 100 years too late.
That guy do a good job or what?
Yeah, real
Yeah.
good.
What in the world's playing now? Did he do a good job or what?
That was great.
Diane just came in and she said, "That's outstanding."
I tell you what, first time we played it at the house, everybody in the room got choked up, including me. I couldn't believe it.
Good deal.
So, that's it, guys. Thanks for hanging
All
around.
righty.
Appreciate it, Benny,
Till next
Chris.
time.
Till next time. This is going to have to be edited pretty heavily to make it to the podcast, but it's all right. I can do it. So,
All
cool.
right, you guys.
All right,
Thank
Benny.
you. Finish up. See ya.